These are some of the kids that have received Scholastic Achievement Awards from us.
And we're talking about, over the years, tens, hundreds of thousands of people have been touched by these talking, what do you call them? Talking?
We call them audio textbooks.
Audio textbooks.
Yes.
And that's literally what they are. It has helped them through the learning process.
Exactly. And the thing that really makes us feel good is that the students, once they receive the audio textbooks, they're able to do it on their own. They're able to go into their rooms, close the door. Their parents don't have to read their homework to them. If they're a blind student, they don't have to hire a reader. They can do it, and just to hear their stories, and they're able to go on to college and get degrees, and because of the audio textbooks, because of what our volunteers are doing for them.
Now, is this free? Do they pay for these books? Is it
practically free? There's a small fee to join, and then annually they would pay $35. If you're an individual, you can get up to 35 audio textbooks a year for $35.
So
That's
it's a minimum cost. It basically
minimum.
just covers basic
Exactly.
expenses.
Yes, and then they're set. We feel good about it.
In the 1930s, numerous books and articles presented a new theory about why the United States had become involved in World War I.
Well, we're back where we started. Suze is still inside reading that history book. She hadn't been out in over an hour. I guess she's okay in there, Carol.
I'm sure she's just fine.
There's a great story about how this all started.
Yes. It was about 1948. World War II was ending, and the government had just passed the GI Bill of Rights, which allowed the veterans to go back to school. The New York Public Library started receiving numerous letters from these vets saying, we'd love to go back to school, but how will we read our textbooks?
The ones who had been blinded.
That's right, who lost their sight.
Wow. So this came out of a need for the vets from World War II.
Absolutely.
And it has since grown into a national organization.
Yes, it has. Our National Library is in Princeton, New Jersey, and we have 30 recording studios such as this one throughout the country, reading all textbooks from kindergarten through postgraduate studies in all subject areas.
Now, what about other languages?
Well, if a book is written in Spanish, we read it in Spanish. If it's written in French or Russian, we read it in French or Russian, but we do not translate. So oftentimes we're asked, especially in this community where there are so many Spanish speakers, do we take a book and translate it? And that we do not do.
Yeah, but you do everything else, and you cover the whole spectrum, although really you concentrate on textbooks.
It's absolutely textbooks. We read novels when it is required reading for a class that a student is taking, because as you heard, the reader will read the page numbers. So when a teacher tells a student, we're going to be working on page 65, that student is able to just turn to page 65, which they could not do with a commercial copy of a novel.
Well, I had in my mind kind of the idea of what we were going to experience here today. But I got to tell you, being here and seeing this place in action, and most importantly, meeting the men and women who come down here and volunteer to read these textbooks.
It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing, and it is inspiring. It's such a wonderful opportunity for people to give back and get involved. And you're always looking for volunteers, aren't you?
We are always looking for volunteers.
What do people do? Just sign up? Do they have to pass is there an audition? Is there
There is training. They come down for a tour, and we show them around, and they meet some of the volunteers just as you have. They learn about the organization, and then when they sign up, they come back, and our staff will give them instruction on how to do it so that they can do the same thing.
To get them up to speed. But
That's
it's not,
right.
We don't want to scare anybody off. It's not that hard to get up to speed to be able to do this, is it?
Not as long as they're willing to read everything from interesting things, as we've heard today, down to the references and bibliographies.
But see, that makes it even better because you're not just reading the easy stuff.
Absolutely.
You're actually having to put out some effort and do something that may not be the most enjoyable thing in the world, but you know it's serving a good purpose.
And sometimes we look for real specific specialties like linguistics, and oftentimes we only have one or two people who can do that.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful situation here. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
The name of the organization again is
Recording for the Blind and Dyslexic.
We're going to put your telephone numbers, your website, all of that on the screen for people who are watching who want to get involved in this, just like your volunteers have.
Well, that would be
to give
wonderful.
you a call, and because you could keep these rooms full. You run them in and out of here all day long, don't you?
All day long, as well as evenings and Saturday.
Well, it's a volunteer situation. There's no money involved in this.
No money.
But I got to tell you, what it lacks in salary is more than made up in the good feelings you have
satisfaction.
Reading these textbooks.
Yes, it is.
We've had a wonderful day. Thank you very
so have
much.
We. Thank you.
And thank your volunteers for us because they really make it all happen.
We will do that. Thank you for coming.
Although the Nye Committee discovered little hard evidence, its findings suggested that merchants of death, American bankers and arms manufacturers, had indeed pulled the United States into World War I.
In his State of the Union address to Congress on January the 6th, 1941, President Roosevelt stressed the danger that aggressive fascist powers presented to the United States. He urged the American people to support those, quote, who are resisting aggression and are thereby keeping war away from our hemisphere, end quote, namely the Allies. Congress passed the Lend-Lease Act 3 months earlier to do just that. Finally, Roosevelt set out the ideals that he believed Americans should fight for, the 4 freedoms. I address you, the members of the 77th Congress, at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. I use the word unprecedented because at no previous time has American security been as seriously threatened from without as it is today. In the future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. The first freedom of speech and expression. Now, I just made a mistake there, so I need to go back and do that line again. Here we go. The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world.
Visiting with Huell Howser is made possible through a generous grant from the Ralph M. Parsons Foundation.